Hey everybody, it's your pal Trandell. We are back with just some more Remnant 2 action. This video is going to be nuts, folks. It's going to be different. I've been wanting to make this video for a while now. I've had this idea bouncing a while in my brain, and I had an absolutely fantastic conversation with one of my viewers on YouTube this morning, PG Skills. Thankfully, there really are some amazing people in the Remnant 2 community that appreciate what I'm trying to do and appreciate the content I'm putting out. Me and PG had a great conversation just talking about all the different aspects of Remnant 2 and why it's such an amazing game for it. I think a lot of content creators and a few people, I've definitely had some trolly comments on my YouTube channel, only view Remnant 2 from a very solo-centric, tunnel-visioned point of view, and I think it's really sad, and I think it does a great disservice to the game, because co-op in Remnant 2 is absolutely amazing, and not only that, but kind of like how me and PG Skills were talking about, Remnant 2 has given us so many tools, so many toys to play around with, to use, to let our imaginations run wild with, that makes things like build crafting and theory crafting so much fun. And when you add the co-op aspect into that equation, it just opens up a brand new vista of opportunities that are just begging to be explored. And that's what this video is about. This video is going to showcase a co-op centric build that I've been wanting to test out and play with and get out there for a while now. And having that conversation this morning with PG Skills definitely inspired me to finally do it. It was a little bit difficult to test in a solo environment, but I'm pretty sure I got enough info that I can say comfortably that it would work absolutely amazing. So, let's get to it. Now, I am pretty sure we've all seen and picked up gear in the game where we're like, what the fuck is this? What am I supposed to do with this? This doesn't make any sense. The whole genesis of this build was basically this ring right here, the Embrace of Sha'Hala. The first time I picked this up, I'm like, okay, that's cool, but what the hell? So, wearer gains 5% incoming damage reduction for each negative status effect or blight they are suffering from, max for a stack. So right off the bat, I'm like, this is cool and all, but there's a huge caveat here, and let's talk about that. To get the absolute most from this ring, you have to be swimming in status effects, in negative status effects, and in a game like Remnant 2, that is bad. We try to avoid negative status effects at all costs because that usually means we're dead. And this ring seems to just throw that out the window, right? But it also got me thinking, right? What else is in Remnant 2 that might make this work? Because here's the other problem you run into. On pretty much every world, at most, you might see 2 different status effects. Lawsome, yeah, you got the little yellow goo guys that can do overload, and yeah, you have like the fire bombers and stuff, and the fire guys that can give you burning, but it's almost impossible to see multiple status effects, not only in a single world, but in a single fight. It is super, super rare to have multiple status effects in a single fight. So again, how do we get as many status effects as we can on ourselves to get the full benefit of Embrace of Sha'Hala? Well, that's where friendly fire comes in. So basically, the whole thing about this build is that you're going to be playing with your buddies. They're basically going to be blowing you up in the back with all kinds of status effects. And with our trait Friendly Fire, you're not going to be taking nearly that much damage from it because it's status effects coming from your friends. The game doesn't care, though. The game doesn't care where the status effect comes from as long as it's a status effect. And that's where you're going to get the full benefit of Embrace of Sha'Hala. Is your buddies loading you up with negative status effects and you not instantly dying. Now, there's definitely some other pieces of this puzzle that we need to put into effect, because even with Friendly Fire, if you got burning, overload, corrosive, freaking bleeding damage all on you being stacked up, it's not going to feel good. So, the other key pieces to this build are things like Tempest Conduit. So, after receiving elemental damage, and again, the game doesn't care where the elemental damage comes from, as long as it's elemental damage. So again, your buddy can, blast you with, Enigma or something like that. Increases all your damage dealt by 10%, and it gives you a 20% resistance buff to that damage. So not only are you going to be doing more damage, but you're going to be taking less damage from whatever caused that effect in the first place, which is amazing. But the thing that really brought this combination all together for me is this guy right here, Neckbone Necklace. Reduces the damage of status effects applied to the wearer by 50%. 50%. This is going to be the other key piece of the puzzle that's going to allow us to basically have our buddies blowing us up with shit and us not instantly melt. Because again, the game doesn't care where the status effect comes from. Gain 25% increased damage when suffering from a status effect or blight. So between the Neckbone Necklace and Tempest Conduit, we're getting a 35% damage increase, guys, which is massive. Again, we're taking the whole paradigm of negative status effects being bad, and basically we're turning them into buffs that make us stronger and harder to kill. So, that's the build, and that was what got me thinking more about it. Now, there's some definite other pieces of the puzzle that I want to talk about. Let's go through the rest of the gear. Now, I also wanted some way to generate mod power. So we do have the Stone of Malevolence. We've talked about this 100 times in previous content videos I've created. This is an amazing ring. The reason why we have this is because we are going to be running Firestorm. Again, we don't care about Firestorm. I'm sure we've all seen the videos out there with co-op play with people blowing up their friends and killing their friends with Firestorm, but we don't care. We absolutely don't care about Firestorm at all. And I'll show you how little we care about Firestorm. This is how little we care about Firestorm. Yeah, Firestorm, and you can see Firestorm basically means nothing to us. And not only that, look at our fire resistance now. It's absolutely bonkers, because again, it's all friendly fire, including your own. And not only that, but we're also running a couple other traits we'll talk to in a moment. So this is going to allow us to have a really good way to generate mod power, because Firestorm just puts out nothing but elemental damage, which is amazing. So the last ring is going to be the Drakestone Pearl. Enable stamina regeneration during melee attacks at 20% of the normal rate. Now, we definitely want this because this is a tank build. You're going to be right up there in people's faces, wailing away on bosses and leads, aberrations, and stuff like that. So we want to make sure we have enough stamina generation to do that. The reason why is because we're going to be running our ornate flail with Steadfast. Now, Steadfast, charge melee attacks cannot be interrupted. That's super important. So that means we're going to be able to stand on the boss's toes, wailing him in the face, and outside a very few limited number of like very special mechanics, we can't get interrupted, which is important because while we're doing that charged attack with the flail, we're also going to be taking 20% less damage from all sources. And at level 10, what damage we do take is going to be converted to gray health. So that's why the Drakestone Pearl is so important, because we want to be able to keep that melee up as much as possible. Now, I have Blood Draw on here. You can probably run anything you want with it. The reason why I have Blood Draw is because we want to control the room. We are the tank. We want to keep enemies on us and not on our squishier buddies that are running with us. And Blood Draw allows us to do that. It allows us a way to pull things closer to us. It allows us to stand in our Firestorm and pull things closer to us. And while we're talking about Firestorm, I have Time Weave on here. Now, Firestorm is absolutely bonkers at controlling smaller enemies or things like elites and stuff like that. Aberrations and bosses, though, aren't really pulled in by it. But when you add Time Weave, though, it will put a slow on them. So while the actual suction of the cyclone might not be able to stop them, at least having the slow will help them stay within the Firestorm range longer. And then you add in Blood Draw, and that should hopefully help with that too. So that's that. Now for the armor I have is actually pretty important. I tried all kinds of different combinations. This is probably the one I found best, and the reason why is because it gives me the best balance of armor, damage reduction, and weight ratios. But it also gives us the most fire resistance. Out of all the elemental damage types, fire was definitely the worst. Firestorm hits like a freaking truck. Witchfire hits like a freaking truck. You know, that, 281 damage per second is not fun. It's not. So fire resistance was definitely the one I wanted most. I am running the Crystal Heart. That way I do have that max health regeneration going. It does reduce my movement speed while it's up, but again, we don't care. We want things on top of us. But it also gives us another source of damage reduction too. That way, if anything starts to fall off for whatever reason, we have backups. So we're basically going to be at that 80% DR cap at all times, regardless of what is going on. So that's the gear. Let's look at the classes real fast. The classes I went with are Alchemist for my prime, Challenger for the backup, and I don't even have my Challenger all the way leveled up, but that's fine. Let's talk about why we picked these classes. Let's talk about the Challenger first. So there's multiple reasons why. A, we get a really nice damage increase the closest enemies are. Again, we want to be close. But we also get even more damage reduction from it, and it's also going to help us with our stamina costs, and it's going to help us with even more survivability every time we use our relic. The big reason, though, is for the encumbrance, and like I said, it's not even leveled up all the way. I didn't want to get into a super heavy weight bracket. So this was really important. Now, Rampage for this build isn't going to be the greatest thing, because it's mostly range damage and stuff like that. War Stomp is mostly damage. But Juggernaut, though, Juggernaut hits the sweet spot. Because not only are we getting Bulwark stacks, but we're also getting increased movement speed and, most importantly, melee speed. And we're getting reduced stagger levels, too. And the thing lasts 25 seconds, so it's absolutely amazing. This is going to allow us to basically tank anything in the game. Outside of the absolute hardest hitting bosses and like one-shot kill mechanics and stuff like that, which thankfully there aren't many. So that's why we went Challenger. Now for our Prime, Alchemist is probably the best that we get for this build for multiple reasons. The main one being the Prime perk. Usually you can only have one concoction at a time. There is a ring that you get from the Feast event that will allow you to have 2. This Prime perk, though, allows you to have 4, which is stupid amazing. Because then you can run things like the Mudtooth Tonic that gives you more health, Dark Cider, which synergizes amazing with Mudtooth Tonic, and it synergizes amazing with the tea because, again, we want that stamina recovery. And you can run Root Water, you know? Or you could run the armor buff, too. The armor buff would actually be really good, too. But having those multiple concoctions makes you such a powerful tank. And there's even more things that are really good about this. The consumable duration is absolutely amazing because that works for your concoctions too. The damage increase is great. This is a good one. So, this not only helps you become tankier, because whenever you use a curative item like Mud Rub or anything like that, it's going to give you even more resistances across the board. And it's going to give your buddies resistances too. So that's absolutely perfect. Experimentalist is an amazing buff. It's going to give you a random buff for 60 seconds for you and all your allies. These buffs are really powerful, guys. They really are. All kinds of stuff. Damage reduction, all kinds of cool things. So, now when it comes to skills, unfortunately, one of the Alchemist's most bread and butter skills is actually the worst skill in this build. And that is the Stone Mist. In pretty much every other build in the game, Stone Mist is amazing. It reduces damage, it makes you tanky, and this is the build breaker for us. Unfortunately, it also makes you immune to status effects, which is the exact opposite of what we want. Because again, for us, status effects aren't negative, they are buffs. So we don't want to be immune. So unfortunately, Stone Mist is out the window. Now, Frenzy Dust would actually work very well because you do get a massive melee speed boost and movement speed boost. Add that with Juggernaut, and yeah, you're going to be running all over the place, attacking things like a madman. But for this build, because again, we're tanking, Elixir of Life grants 5 health regeneration per second, protects against fatal damage, can also be used to revive down players. This, with our gear, with Juggernaut, we're basically going to be unkillable. We're going to be able to tank anything in the game. And here's a quick little tip for any other budding alchemists out there. All your vial effects, yeah, they might only last 20 seconds, but the cloud lasts 10. And as long as you are standing in that cloud, it's going to constantly refresh whatever vial effect you have picked out. So let's get that recharged real fast, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Now, watch what happens when I pop my vial. Do you notice how the effect's not going down? It's still at 20 seconds. As long as you can stay within that cloud or move in and out of it, you will constantly refresh that duration until the cloud goes up. So it's not necessarily 20 seconds. It's closer to 30 if you can keep running into it, which makes that even better, because 30 seconds of being nigh unkillable is pretty stupid. Yeah, so those are the classes, that's the gear, and the mods. Let's talk about the traits, because the traits is where it all comes together. Kinship. I can't stress this enough. Without Kinship, this build basically falls apart. If you and all your buddies are basically blowing you up with every status effect in the game, you're not going to last long. Yeah, especially since a lot of these status effects stacks. Yeah, Kinship is what makes this build possible. Now, there are definitely some other things that are really super helpful. Vigor. The more vigor we have, the tankier we are. Shade Skin. Shade Skin with Kinship is going to keep you alive. Because it's not just status effect damage. We also got to worry about the actual damage too. Again, things like Firestorm hit like a truck. It's not fun. Having Shade Skin is going to allow you to tank all of that damage. Having Siphoner is going to allow you to heal through all that damage. And then from there, there's a couple different routes you can go to. Fortify is amazing. Fortify is going to make you super tanky. Potency. Again, we want all these consumables to last as long as possible. So potency is really super powerful. A triage is also really good. Hey, that extra 25% healing is going to help out a lot. And then from there, it's all about stamina. It's all about stamina regen. As you can see, I'm rolling with 83 stamina per second. At 20%, we're getting like something like almost, let's say like 15, 16 stamina a second going while we're meleeing. Because again, we want to keep that up as long as possible. That way we get all the benefits we can from Steadfast. And that's the build, guys. Like I said, it's absolutely kind of broken. Just how powerful this build is. Especially when you add things like, where is it? Things like Bloodroot, which is going to give you even more regeneration. You pop one of these before a fight, well, guess what? Now you got even more regeneration for a whole 60 seconds. And again, that's not the one I wanted. We wanted this one. We don't care. We do not care about Firestorm anymore. It does nothing to us. Absolutely nothing to us. And Firestorm is honestly one of the most powerful abilities in the game. It's just, in co-op, it can definitely be finicky, and it can definitely be a bad time if people get caught in it. But with this build, you want to get caught in Firestorm. And there you go. That's the build. That is my negative status effect build, where negative status become buffs for us. So, as always, everybody, thank you. I appreciate you all. this build was super fun to make. I've already done some testing with it out in the wild. It's great sucking things into the Firestorm and just running right into the middle of it and taking all that damage while watching enemies die. It's absolutely glorious. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. As always, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll talk again soon.